Speaker of the House did not deny us. He personally reached out to us at 12:30 at night after my video. He actually texted a guy on our team, my Instagram video. He's like, this was not me, and was apologizing. You have like full help. And even his, I think it was his chief of staff or right hand, whatever it was, I think a guy named Phil, he called me. He was like, we did not do that. He was like, who was telling you that? So there's a lot of misinformation, but keep spreading it. I mean, like my own video got fact checked by a third party.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it really did. My own video got fact checked, and it's like, this is false information. I'm just like, that's my own video.
What got me fired up about this was yesterday, me and my team did the rescue of that 11-day-old baby. And all these government officials and social media, they're showing that video, that pictures and video of that rescue, and claiming that like they have some like government helped with that. And I mean, even USA, I think it was USA Today, wrote an article about it saying it was a Florida National Guard that went and got it, like with a helicopter. No, it was me, my buddy Charlie, and a civilian named Zeb with his own personal helicopter out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Like without that civilian, that baby would be dead. And the old lady we went and rescued after that, she'd be dead too because she had 1 day left of oxygen. No one was going to go get them.
Like, so there's a lot of, they're really trying to suppress the story of what's really happening there. Jeremy, the founder of Aerial Recovery, he was meeting with the mayor, and they had CNN there at Lake Lure. And he was escorting CNN, the biggest fake news network there is, and they wouldn't even let CNN videotape the disaster areas. They would only let them film areas that weren't that bad.
Are you serious?
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's how bad it is when they don't even allow CNN to actually film the real story. And speaking of Lake Lure, we should probably talk about that. Yeah. That was our very first day of arriving. So when we arrived into Rutherford Airport, as we were making connections with helicopter pilots, on my pilot app, there was a TFR, a temporary flight restriction, specifically over Lake Lure and Chimney Rock. So no aircraft could fly in and out of it. So we were trying to figure out why that was, because we wanted to take my plane and kind of go up and just recon and see what was going on. So we called the guy that put it up. He was in charge of Frankie. Guy, let's name drop him. Frankie at Emergency Management Services, I don't know his last name, was like, oh yeah, we put it up to basically stop, because the guy that flew his helicopter in there to drop off supplies, they were mad about it. So he's kind of going viral right now in the news. Literally, this guy flew his civilian helicopter in and bring like water and food, and they reported him to the FAA. So they were like, you can't fly in there. I'm like, well, look, I'm here, State Guard. I'm also here with Aerial Recovery. Like, I need to get in there because we're pushing in. Plus, we already had an Aerial Recovery ground team there on the ground who was actually meeting with the mayor of Lake Lure. So Charlie asked him, he goes, well, what altitude can we fly at? He goes, I don't know. And we're like, what do you mean? You put the TFR up, like, what, can we fly over it? Like, what can we do? He's just like, I don't know. And then, so we roll up to, it's like kind of between Chimney Rock and Lake Lure. And there's this Michigan task force. We're going to get to these guys. This Michigan task force who is there for profit, we find out later on. And they're there with the fire chief, and they're just, their leader, I don't want to put it on the whole team there, but their leader was just very condescending, had this punch me face. And he just kept looking at us with like disgust. He just kind of sit there with his hands on his hips, and he just kind of like look at us and just kind of like, and then one of our guys who was there on the ground already, he comes up to me and Charlie, and he's like, hey, these guys, they're the problem. They're the ones reporting us to get us kicked out because they don't like us. I'm also an FAA air traffic controller. This is like what I do is literally set up austere airfields and HLZs. Like, I can land these helicopters out here for you, put your guys in it, and go do the work you need to do. He's like, no, you can't do that. Like, I was like, well, I'm bringing in, at that time, my state guard unit was driving up and they had helicopters. I was like, I'm bringing in helicopters in here. He's like, no, you're not. And I was like, well, you're not going to stop me. He's like, well, I put up the TFR. And that's when I found out he was the one that told the Frankie at EMS to put up the TFR, because he started telling me that he was so proud of himself about the guy that flew in supplies. And he was so mad about it. He's like, this guy flew in with supplies without my authorization and just landed in a field. I can't be having people out here landing helicopters, bringing supplies without talking to me first. So he's like, yeah, I report him to the FAA. And he was just like so proud of himself for that.
Wow.
So they were gone the next day, by the way.
They were.
They were there for 2 days, and they were gone. I got that from the fire chief.
So as we started talking to their crew, that's when we found out they were there for profit. And we're like, how'd you guys get here? And he's like, oh, we bid on the job. And we're like, you bid on the job? He's like, yeah, North Carolina put out like requests for like crews to show up and you get paid. I was just like, that's when it started making sense. Mm-hmm. He didn't want a state guard unit and a nonprofit there that would outshine him and his crew while they're there for profit.